Okay, just wanted to have some discussion around IDS. Yeah, what is the basic difference between when we say IDS versus IPS, intrusion prevention system, intrusion detection system? How they're different? What is the difference between IDS and IPS, intrusion prevention system and intrusion detection system? Detection system detects and then prevention. Yes, detect and prevent. Yeah. So detect, not just detect, but take action based on what it detects. Yeah. But most of the time we talk about IDS. Our focus is always intrusion detection rather than prevention. Why? Yeah, but we generally don't talk about intrusion prevention systems. We always say IDS, IDS, IDS. Why? Because the kind of intrusion prevention system we have, they are good in terms of if they understand traditional, more typical attacks or malware. Yeah, if they are identifying and saying this seems to be, we have quarantined it or we have deleted this. So that is the action you are taking, kind of saying it's an intrusion prevention system. So in IT system, maybe it's kind of well understood. When you got intrusion, you need to delete it or isolate it, whatever. So your software automatically does it, and will give you an alert saying, there's seems to be a malware. We have quarantined this file, and asking you to review it. You just go and see if you think, no, it's a legitimate file, but it has flagged it wrongly. You will take it back into your space. Otherwise, you will discard it. So just delete it, seems to be virus. Right? In OT system, it's not that straightforward. Now the reason is because we are not talking about, obviously it has some part of IT when we say IT OT system. But then most of the part in the OT part, this is a physical system. And most of the intrusion detection system developed for IT system, they have like looking at buffer overflow, looking at IP address, looking at payloads, port numbers, and those kind of things. But those intrusion detection will not work in physical system. Yeah, because physical systems, your maybe IP address, port, everything is fine, but maybe the contents are different. So your intrusion detection does not have that capability to understand whether the data, physical data quantities are legitimate or malicious. Will it support the protocol it's intended to? Is it in the right format, and so on. Yeah, because physical systems are not designed with keeping security in mind. So attacking those systems considering there's no security is not difficult. Yeah, you can exploit an attack. You can exploit a protocol and perform a simple attack, even that can disrupt it, kind of temporarily. So for OT system or for a specific cyber physical system, we need to develop more customized ideas. Those ideas, they are not just looking at IT part or the black box of the packet, but they are also looking at kind of inside of it. So generally when we say IT system, we talk about two kind of detection system. One is host based intrusion detection, one is network based. Right? What we do in host based? So what are the things you can look at? Host means any device. So you can deploy intrusion detection on a device. Now generally what we look for is logs. So one of those things is, what are the logs there? If you have put in, let's say, authentication mechanism in place, asking users to log in and then they can have access to this device, we create a log so that we can get a record, who have accessed this and what time, and so you record timestamp and so on. Sometimes we also keep an eye how many applications we have got on this device, how many services running on this device, right? And then what they are doing, how, if people are using, what data they are kind of collecting or sending it to, and so on. And so this will help us understand device level security, more particular around access control, authentication, and what content and data that you have associated with this device. Broadly, the other one is called intrusion detection, where we mostly look at the traffic, right? So as an enterprise, as a company, what type of different data you receive? You have multiple devices, whatever you call it. Now, as an external attacker or people, users, clients, what type of data they will send through which applications? What kind of data you will see if you are a network analyst of a company? We just wanted to see what is incoming and outgoing traffic. Yeah. What will be the applications that will be using or sending a lot of data? Let's take example of Google, right? What type of data Google generally receives? What is the kind of maximum volume they receive? Query. The query is fine. I'm saying what type of application? Why? For what purpose you use Google, for example? What are the different things you do with Google products? So one of the mostly doing things is surfing. You use Google search engine to search XYZ, right? Most of the things it's done by HTTPS. So you see there's a lot of traffic coming from HTTPS. We have get method and post method. Yeah. So get is when you receive data, post when you send data. What else? Which is typically true with YouTube. Watching YouTube, you are getting data. You're fetching data from Google YouTube server. What else? Email. Yeah, you use Gmails. So whoever using Gmail, they're sending. So when we are using Gmail, what does it mean? Is that Gmail on this laptop? If I'm using Gmail, what is Gmail? What is that? What is happening? So companies have something called web servers, right? So whenever you are accessing their website, searching any queries, asking and fetching any data, they're connecting to the web server of the company. When you are using their mail service, you're connecting to their mail server, right? So Google has their mail server that has this application that looks like Gmail. It allows you to create an account. So it's just an interface that you see, right? When you say www.gmail.com. So you're connecting to the server. The server is giving you an interface where you can register yourself, log in into this, and they have created how you manage your data in a way. All the data stored on that server, right? And whenever you log in, you can fetch. There's a new message, you can fetch it. Right. Now, there are a number of protocols involved. Now, we are not going much detail, but SMTP, MIME, post office POP protocol, IMAP protocols are there. Yeah. What's the difference between post office POP and IMAP? So POP is post office protocol, and IMAC is what? Internet mail access protocol. What is that? Now this has also changed now the way you see your inbox. Now at present what we see, when there's a message delivered, you can also see the content, kind of a subject, but maybe partial content, one line. Somebody is sending you something. This is possible because of the IMAP. Earlier we used to have POP3. When we had an email around 20 years back, it was not looking like this. You have to log in every time where there's a new email. Now once you log in, you don't need to log in. Yeah, there's a notification, new message, you just click in and you get to see immediately. But then if you're using post office, you have to connect it. And at that point of time, we were having dial-up connections. If you're connecting to email, you're just waiting for 2 minutes just to connect. Yeah, and then you're clicking on one message, that's something. So the way it works, if you're using POP3, generally POP3 doesn't deliver to you, to your message. You are reading message on their server. Now through this IMAP, we have more customized view now, where you can download your messages. Yeah, anytime when you open your Gmail app, all the inbox messages there. Why? Because you have downloaded them on your device. Even there's no internet, you can still read downloaded emails, which was not the case previously. If you're not connected to internet, you can't read it. Right? So web server, email servers. Whenever somebody needs to communicate, they will connect to your email, email server. And the companies like IT tech companies which are offering you this kind of service, they receive large volume. For example, Gmail is free of cost. Many people use Gmails, right? Google search, YouTube, and so on. Similarly, for social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they all are free, and they receive large volume of data. So as a network security expert, you will receive data trying connecting to your web server, mail server mostly. Yeah? You need to understand what kind of intrusion it could be, what protocol we are supporting. Now when we say SMTP and MIME, what is the difference? MIME, have you heard it? MIME, what is that? SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is used to send your message from one end to another end. Right? Now when you send an email, how does it deliver to another person? I'm sending an email to him. What will happen? So you have a screen, we call it interface, your user agent, where you have two fields and your text body and everything. You say submit or send, right? You have a sender address. Your message from this system is sent to the server of this organization, right? Let's say if I'm using NIT Hamirpur email address, so obviously that message will go to the server of this institute, mail server, yeah, using SMTP. SMTP is a push protocol. It will move your message from one end to another end. Then your message from the server of this institute is being forwarded to the server of recipient. Right? If you're sending email to someone on Gmail, it will go to the Google server, mail server. Yeah? Again, SMTP there. Now it sits into the inbox. So server has allocated some space, we call it inbox, for every individual who has account in that server, right? So that message goes there. Now how it's delivered to individual? It doesn't get into your phone automatically. It just sends notification. And you have to log in, connect to the internet, and then you fetch it. Yeah? which protocol we use. So SMTP doesn't have that capability. SMTP is a push protocol, it can just push. It cannot pull it. So in order to pull it, we use IMAP. Yeah? So IMAP is used to fetch it. Now SMTP supports ASCII bit, 7-bit characters, which are your English text. If you're texting anything in English, SMTP is fine. If you're typing something in Chinese, in Korean, any other language, SMTP doesn't have that capability to send it. For that one, we have MIME. MIME is, what is MIME? Multipurpose Internet Mail Extension, which says if you need to send text in different language, because these languages are not 7-bit codes, they are 8-bit, 9-bit codes. If you're using MIME, MIME has that capability to convert 9 or 8-bit code into 7-bit code, and then you can use SMTP to send it. Similarly, a recipient, those 7 bits, use MIME to convert them back to 8 bits or 9 bits. Yeah? If you're using images, audio, video, you need to use MIME. Then only you can. Now there's also called Secure MIME. They have secure version of MIME, where they look into authentication of data and so on and so forth, and integrity of data, making sure you receive the correct video, audio files, whatever. So that was about your network intrusion detection system, where we look at mostly traffic on the web, and mostly accessible protocol is HTTP. Yeah, whenever you search, whenever you fetch anything, it's HTTP or HTTPS. Or it could be email traffic, depending on the number of protocol we talk about. Yeah, and then you kind of put some indicators. You look for IP addresses and payloads and type of protocols, and so on and so forth. What is heat map? And why it's required? What's its use? So this is an example of a heat map. So let's look at this. It says number of days here, and then machines or devices, for example. If I'm monitoring every day how many devices being targeted with any attack, or how many times somebody is using, how many times the users of this institute are using device X. Every time when you access it, I'll just keep the counter, increment the counter. Right? Now so this kind of mapping will help you understand the big picture. If I have thousands of devices, by looking at this one chart, I can get a sense which are the devices that are mostly accessible. People oftenly use them, more frequently use them, because the numbers are, and as the number grows up, it becomes much darker or a different. Again, it's up to you how you see the colors. For example, here, green means low risk, yellow means medium risk, high risk, and critical risk or something. Yeah. So that's how you can design heat. Heat maps are really powerful to understand the big picture. And then there are a number of applications you can think of to design heat map for. Right? So it says, if I just read it, the heat map represents the number of instances of a set of behaviors occurred on each machine each day in this example. This heat maps enables the analyst to quickly focus on, for example, in this case, machine 5, day 5, which is 72, if you see this number, which is the darkest number. So out of these, this particular machine is more critical. Yeah. To create a cyber heat map, you need first to gather data on your network vulnerabilities and potential threats. Then use a virtualized tool to plot this data on a grid, and that template is also available online, where different colors represent varying level of risk, with hotter colors indicate high risk areas, cooler colors signifies low risk areas. Key steps includes identifying assets, accessing threats, assigning risk scores, regularly updating the map. Yeah, so you can write a program that can plot it, count it based on whatever is your logic, and then create this map with different colors. Yeah, and then you can give a range. 80 to 90 this color, 90 to 70 to 80 this color, 60 to 70 this color. So this can help you understand what are those critical things which are in this color. Now we are thinking everything to be, all these things are done previously manually. People are used to create those things, understand. Now we want to automate all those things. If I just wanted to understand what are the critical assets, people mostly use it every day, I'll just create this map. I might also look at the log saying how many unsuccessful attempt accessing device X. This might help me understand people are trying to break it. Yeah. So you build that kind of understanding with these simple tools. Then we got something called security, information, and event management. Have you heard this? It's a technology to collect and aggregate data from various systems, allowing organization to meet compliance requirements while safeguarding against threat that provides real-time analysis, monitoring, and alerting on security logs. So now we have a number of tools that supports SIM, security information event management, which just simply says we are collecting information, collecting data, try understand any cyber event within this. And if you find it, we want to manage it. So it's kind of a software or a platform, you can say, that alerts you, that looks at logs, who is accessing what device, and for any unsuccessful attempt, for any abnormal activity, they created a kind of a log, and if they find something unusual, they can flag it, alert users, send you a message saying something is not right, look at this, rather than, because we are talking about a very large amount of volume, and there might be different parameter, different indicator that we need to look into. So companies have come up with the tools like this. When you deploy this tool, this will do 10 different things. Compare the baseline and help you understand when things go wrong. It will flag you, send you a notification saying something looks suspicious at network level, something suspicious at this device level. Somebody get into the system by compromising this device. Somebody made 4 unsuccessful attempts on this device, something like that. So it can help you to understand the big picture, and then you can derive a number of reports out of it. Resource related, what happened in the day, what process are you running, how many times, or up to what time the system was down or issues, whatever. So those reports will also help you understand what were the issues in different parts of your system, right? What kind of current threats system organization is experiencing. So these tools are really helpful because they can scale, they can handle large scale data and then do a variety of things for you. Now in terms of OT and IT, OT, generally IT look for network. As I said, they're more into network side or data breach. So it's network monitoring, user behavior analysis, what user is accessing, whether they have permission, whether they're authorized to do so. Are there any unsuccessful attempts to log in? Threat intelligence feeds, incident management. OT more on device sides, asset side. So they look for device performance, asset identification, process sensor data, and so on. So they are more into process, asset, device, and try to understand whether those things are okay or not, and not just the data. So if I look at this, say information source, the comparison, OT system utilize operational data such as sensors outcome, machinery health metrics. On the other hand, IT SIM relying on digital element like network activity, user interaction, and log files. Right? As we discussed, even creating log file on OT system is not easy. We don't have logs for those. Evaluation metrics emphasize on the importance of the safety, reliability, and productivity. So as we discussed that most of the OT systems, they come up with a safety system inbuilt with it. In the worst case, the safety system activates and it connect the system, right, in order to mitigate the massive damage. Reliability, what is reliability? So reliability simply say how well the system is before any error, any disruption comes. You know, how reliable my car? What does it mean? So you generally, when you go to buy a product, let's say you're going to buy a car, what do you look for? If you're a new buyer, possibly you will look for how it looks like. Yeah? But if you are a buyer who already drove a car, you understand everything about car, you look for the specification. You wanted to have a car that can go miles without any issues. Yeah? You don't want to buy a car which looks fancy, but then every other day there's some problem with this. So reliability is like that. We want to have a reliable system that can work for months and years without any issues. Right? So that is the emphasis of physical systems. On the other hand, IT system focus on CIA. Yeah, their priority is confidential information. On the other hand, OT we have availability is the primary key. Availability, then integrity, and then we say confidentiality. Monitoring scope, it supports decentralized visibility, offering both on-site and remote data access. For IT system, generally is a centralized approach via security operational center. What is that? So OT system, since we are talking about a large-scale system, keeping it centralized, having a lot of issues. We talk about like single point of failure and so on. So earlier, for example, if a country having 4 grids, they were standalone grids. But then nowadays, we kind of connect all the grid to make it more decentralized system. Now we are also supporting decentralizing it so that, for example, in the case of smart grid, you can fulfill the demand of energy locally with microgrid, with solar panels and other things. Yeah, but IT system is mostly centralized for university, enterprise, whatever, and they look for something called security operational center, where they look for what going on in the organization, and then mostly looking at data, where the data is stored, what data is coming in and going out. Yeah. Oops. So in the ICS system, industrial control system, particularly in smart grid, there are a number of attacks being targeted. So we talk about Stuxnet the other way. Yeah, Stuxnet worm targeted high-value Iranian assets. So the intention of Stuxnet was to target or damage the components which are having high value. Yeah, the rotator, the centrifugal, the create centrifugal force. Ukraine power cut was cyber attack. We'll talk about Ukraine grid in a minute, maybe. Right. So what could be the potential indicator in IT/OT system? So if I give some examples, unusual outbound network traffic. Now sometimes what is happening is this example of insider threat, for example. People sitting in company sending out some data of the companies. Yeah? Now people earlier used to copy it through USB drive. That's why in companies nowadays you don't have USB drive. There's no kind of hard disk, no floppy drive, no USB drive, nothing. You can't copy any data. Now many organizations also restrict on what you can attach to your email. Right? They can control what data can go outside. They can figure it out what, who you're sending to. Most of the time, if you're working for government organizations or sensitive organizations, you can't even have anything stored on your devices like laptop. You can't. There's nothing on your laptop at all. You always connect to the server, do something there. You can't copy anything. You can't take picture. You can't screenshot it. Nothing. Yeah, if you do that, they have a tool that can detect it. For example, if you, I don't know banking, but if you log in your mobile banking app, try to take a screenshot, it doesn't work. Yeah, it says you can't take it because of the nature of applications. If you do this on LinkedIn, if your LinkedIn app, screenshot it, it will detect it. It will not stop it, but it will detect saying somebody has taken screenshot. So we have tools that can help understand what employee in the organization, what they are doing, what kind of data they are sending, copying, yeah, for whatever purpose, which is ideally not allowed in a way, in practical, in ethical sense, because your intention might be to benefit the competitor in a way. Yeah, maybe you're planning joining some other company, and you're taking all the credential information with you to help them. So how you stop this from happening? So those kind of tools are really important for a company. Sometimes they have some silent software. Whatever activity you are doing on a device, the logs of that is being sent to somewhere else. People are looking at it, what you are doing, sitting here. Yeah? When you're sending in emails, they're capturing some stuff and things like that. Login anomalies. When you have unsuccessful attempts, you're accessing device, you put user ID password, goes wrong. Right? Let's say if you're using online banking, for example, you put password says invalid, you put another password, invalid, then it's blocked. Yeah? So it's warn you saying you have attempted 2 unsuccessful attempts out of 3. This is your last attempt. Why? So that we can restrict the access because of the brute force. What is brute force? Brute force attack? Here are all possible comments to look for. So when we had this iPhone, if you so iPhone has a feature where you can kind of, if you lost your iPhone, you can go online and you can delete data from the device remotely. Yeah, and that will allow you. So it's a kind of 4-digit PIN it asks for. If you don't remember, there's 4-digit. You know how many combinations it got, and you can try. You can write a program possibly and feed it. And there was no restrictions on how many attempts you can make. So it's not that difficult for an attacker to crack it. And that's why they start restricting. You can't make too many attempts. For a 4-digit number, 6-digit number, or even 2-digit number, even 3-digit number, 3 attempts are not, it can save you. Yeah, so there's always saying you have an 8-digit password at least, and then if you're giving 3 attempts, no one can guess those 3 attempts. It's a very low probability someone can get the actual, very, very low. And that's one of the reasons they are saying if you're not the actual person, even if you are the right person, you forget, recover it. Recover your password, but then we'll keep your environment safe. Right? Now, how you recover? How you reset password? In older time, on the spot, it says a forget password, and will pop up window where you can put your password, create a new password, or maybe asking some questions, simple questions, hint questions, yeah, that you do generally when you register for it. But then getting answer to the hint questions, sometimes it's not that difficult, because most of the time people have very usual answer that maybe your friends or people who know you generally knows. Say what's the surname of your mother, what is your first school, what is your first job, which city you, blah, blah, something like that. So they are not difficult to identify in a way. Now what they did, whenever you forget password, they send an email to your another email account. Yeah, and through there you get a link and reset it, which is much secure way of doing things. Okay, increase volume in history and read. When you see there's a lot of data coming. Communication with malicious command and control server. When you see that one of the devices is actually connected to CNC server, that means intention is to send data out of the network. Geographical irregularities, access patterns, anomalies in privileged user account activities. Somebody is trying to use something which is not authorized to, or they have access but from something different locations. Right? For example, if I'm logging to my device from here, I got a notification. It seems to be a different location. You're not in UK. Yeah? So it's helping me. Are you the right person? Are you the person who was accessing it from different location? Yes, it's fine. If no, then reset it. click on this link, do something. So they send email alerts to us. Yeah. So if you think that somebody needs to be accessing resource in this region at this place, but if you see this remote access, they want to confirm. Is it you? Do you have access actually? Do you access? And yes, then it's fine. Otherwise, seems to be suspicious. If you think this is suspicious, then take some action to recover it. Application using the wrong port, response size sometimes too large, could be DOS or denial distributed DOS attack. Unexpected usage of controller resources. Sometimes attacker try controllers, right? What somebody control your PLC? They can change the logic. And then once logic is changed, if I'm saying the password is incorrect, do nothing. Password incorrect, allow them, whatever. So you change the logic, so these are critical points. And it's not just the data. What if someone take control of your system? They have control for everything, all the data, all the devices, all resources. Port scanning of control devices, control logic modification, unsupported, unusual function code, mismatch between control logic and historian. So you always look for how it is supposed to be from the history. If you think something suspicious, then because you always need to connect the baseline, right? And generally baseline, you can create baseline more confidently as you have more data. If you can look into what does the pattern look like in the past, it can help you to predict in the future. If we are expecting something very similar, so if something sudden come, you can always compare with the baseline. Seems to be unusual. And then you need to look into this. Right, so just a table for this. For example, you got a couple of attacks, and then we wanted to understand which of these indicators could be part of this. Somebody performing attack, then they are hitting those indicators. So kind of a mapping of this table. Now, what we did, so this work is one of my PhD student who look into try understand. So again, when we do this kind of research, academic people can develop algorithms and understand the problem and so on, but practically they are not working on physical systems. So you have to reach out to the industry people to actually understand the problem that you think is the problem is actually problem or not, or might be something else. Yeah. So he actually created a questionnaire, set of questions, interviewed some of the people from industry, and try understand what are the key problems and possibly the indicators, because it's very hard to understand what are the indicators in OT system. OT system is very context specific, right? It depends on what type of devices are there. If devices are different, the whole context become different. Running different protocols, so you are calculating, computing, looking at different things, different parameters. So the whole point is to try understand if we have an IT system always have some kind of predefined indicators in a way. You always look for IP address and so on. So he looked into try understand if the IT indicators can help us in OT system. If yes, up to what extent they can help, which are the indicators that can help us, and what are the things, what are the indicators that we cannot cover from IT and we need to develop those for context specific or OT systems. So he kind of thought about the system and put in place indicators, the one we talk about now, where this sits in your Purdy reference model. Some of the indicator from IT side, some of the indicator sits in ZNZOD, some of the indicators on supervisory level, layer 2, level 0, level 1, and so on. Yeah. And then he went out to the people, interviewed them, and then people quoted something. Now, when we do this kind of research, we are more interested in to understand the unexpected thoughts. Yeah? People might come and say, oh, this will not work on IT. This will not work on OT. Yeah? Patching is not easy. We can't kind of keep down our system. So for example, somebody says there's no one fit size when you're talking about IOC. Indicator of compromise. It's not an IT system like the IT system where we mostly look at the network level. We are mostly talking about data. where we have certain indicators in terms of how data has been sent or in and out. So mostly when we say data, we are talking about data in a particular format, following particular packet, size, protocol, port, IP, and so on. But in OT, ICS is very different depending on the system we are talking about, depending on the devices we are talking about, and the kind of attack you are talking about. The second major thought was sometimes the attack occurs at IT level, and with current level of maturity, industry network, security is impossible to differentiate between legitimate use and attack. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday. We'll talk more. Somebody sends a command, that's a legitimate command. So one thing is, if it is an unlegitimate malicious command, maybe IDS can flag it because it's coming from somewhere else, some other source, some other IP, whatever. But if it is coming, somebody compromised my laptop, that's some part of this institute, somebody compromised my laptop and then sending some emails, whatever. It's impossible to understand that I haven't sent anything because it's coming from my system. Yeah? In a way, if the command is malicious, command is legitimate, but it's a fake command, sending by somebody else, not the actual operator. But the command is legitimate, seems to be legitimate. It's impossible to detect it, to understand this is not as legitimate, it's a fake command. Yeah? In those scenarios, what you're going to do? You simulate it. You always simulate and see how it will behave if I allow it to the system. So operator always has that opportunity to decide on whenever there's a flag, when the command is being sent. Whenever there's a suspicion, you always check whether. So that's where we have digital twin, we have large scale co-simulation environment where you can simulate and see the effect. So I'll be talking about that. We talk about this. We develop a simulator, I'll talk about that. Physical logical system access at unusual times. Somebody coming to this lab at night, for example, yeah, which is unusual because classes are from 9 to 5, 9 to 6 or whatever. Unless people know that PhD student or whoever access it, right? Even we know that maybe 2 PhD students sits here, but what 10 people are coming here? Something not right. Somebody who has not access, they're just jumping in. Changes of traffic pattern through firewall between businesses and control center. So again, sometimes traffic path changes between, again, if you have multiple network, attacker might fabricate packet depending on what level of security you have. Alarm generated by PLC in combination with other IOC can be a clear indicator of compromise. So somebody said, okay, you're detecting IOC, which is fine, but also look at PLC logic, what the logic says. So it's a programming logic control. It's a controller that controls. If you write a program, it will do the things. Check this, do this, do this. It will do those things. You detect indicator and see whether these indicators are in line with this, these instructions that you said. Is it following those things? If not, something's wrong. Either somebody has changed the code, or those indicators says data is incorrect or protocol, whatever. Legacy equipment software may not be generating logs. That would be used for security monitoring purpose. So again, that's one of the difficulty that we don't have enough logs for OT systems. Right? Once you have log, let's say if I'm creating a log, who can access it? User ID and password, anybody log, enter it, I have a log that this person has logged in at this point of time. But an OT system, most of these devices don't support logs. So as I said, they have default passwords. People with the user roles, they can go and access it. And there's no record, there's no log who have accessed it, whether it's a legitimate, it's a malicious, whether they are authorized, not authorized, and so on. So those are big problems in those systems. So he looked into investigating usable indicators against cyber attacks in industrial control system. And he published it in Symposium of Usable Privacy and Security. What is usable security? Have you heard this term, usable security? Usable security is simply security of a product that users use, clients. For example, any product in your mobile, for example, right? So we wanted to look around what is the security for that application that people use. How useful that protected in terms of security. Is it easy for them to understand? So if I say, okay, in order to use this, you have to create a password, or password should be 100-digit long, should have XYZ. Can you remember it? No. On the other hand, if I say, okay, when you register it, you don't need to remember password, just use your thumb, biometric. Is it easier? That's what is usable security. You are developing security in those products that are easy for user to follow. Otherwise, they will stay away for those. I don't care about this product. I'll use something else. I can't remember 100 bits or 50 bits. So you are developing product in a way that are acceptable for users to spend time on. Because as a user, your priority just to access it, rather than getting into trouble that before even you have to access, you have to remember this, do that, right? If I say, if you solve this puzzle, you will be entered in the system, and then puzzle takes 10 minutes. Will you prefer to do that system? Possibly not, right? And there's so many software and tools and products available. So usable security simply says you need to design security in such a way which is easier for users to follow. They can accept it, rather than they are panicking or they are not really understanding what they need to do. Yeah? So that's about usable security. Do we want a break? Then I'll talk about this. So let's have another 10 minutes break. We'll come back and then continue with the work that one of my students did. Talk about that. Yeah, then see you in 10 minutes.